All right, three, two, one. We are recording. Hello and welcome to the Gonzo Experience. I am David Gonzo Mamano, your host. So excited that you are sharing some heartbeats with us today. I have a great guest. She happens to be local. She is I'm going to call her a friend, even though I haven't met her face to face, but I'm going to meet her soon because number one, she's really cool. And number two, her product is beer. So why not? Why not meet her, right? So today on the show, I have Jennifer Newman. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So excited. You are anybody that listens to the Gonzo Experience, we're for anybody. We have listeners in Belgium, in Africa, and New Zealand. But people know that I am from Rochester and I love Rochester. And every now and then I'll have a Rochester superstar on my podcast. And that is you today. You're making some really cool things happen, not only in Rochester, but in the beverage industry, which we're going to dig into. So I'm going to read your bio and then we're going to ask you, it's going to be more like an inquisition. So are you ready?
So, sounds like fun. Let's go. Bring it on.
So Jennifer Newman is the CEO and co-owner of, so that's what you put at the title here, but the beer that you have made is Young Lion Brewing Company, right? So that's the name of your whole company. So you're the CEO and co-owner of that. And you have a long-standing passion for craft beers and the craft brewing industry. Newman tried her hand at home brewing, but quickly realized her taste for the craft didn't translate into tasty beers. So at YLBC, Young Lion Brewing Company, Jen leaves the brewing to the masters, but takes the lead from the trenches as head business maven. Jen joined the Young Lion Project in August of 2015. In her role as the founder, Newman assumes all operational responsibilities, including strategic planning, vendor relations, HR, budgeting, licensing, strategy, sales, and of course, beer tasting. Before fulfilling her dream to launch a brewery, Newman worked for more than 20 years in business, initially as a business analyst at Price Waterhouse, Scholastic, Cox Communications, and Ledestri Foods, before co-founding three successful startups, DB Secure, Application Security, and Techrgy. So Jennifer, again, welcome to the show. So excited. Those other businesses sound very, dare I say, geeky. But this one is like really, we're talking beer. I mean, how exciting, right?
Right, exactly. Well, and then that was kind of how I fell into it. I had done these other projects and companies that I truly did enjoy, but I reached a moment in my life where I could do what I truly wanted to do and what I was passionate about. And I knew before I even answered the question in my head, what did I want to do next? I knew that it was beer. So in 2011, I kind of started exploring it. And then in 2015, I was lucky enough to fall in with a group that also wanted to open a brewery. And here we are today.
So tell me about your love for beer. I mean, it's great to hear. I mean, have you been a beer lover since you were, we'll say 21?
Yeah, well, and maybe even a little earlier. I would say perhaps I grew up with a keg of something in the basement, and it was my job from a very early age to go downstairs and get my father a beer. So actually, I was pouring beers very young for him. And it was a German household. My maiden name is Jaeger, spelled with a J. So it was also kind of a little bit a part of our culture. And yeah, so I've loved beer since I was young. And then when you layered craft beer on top of it, so I've already had this liquid that I already love, and then you layer craft beer on top of it, which has this whole artisanship and this whole ethos about it. I knew that was definitely sort of the passion and the drive that I wanted to follow.
Are you of the age where you remember the beer ball?
Of course. And then not only that, but I'm lucky enough to know Fred Matt of Saranac, Utica Club and all of that I really kind of founded and spearheaded that. So absolutely. Yeah, no.
Yeah, for those, and I don't know if they were all over the country, but here in upstate New York, growing up in, high school and college and beyond, we had what was called a Matt's beer ball. And it was just a round kind of mini keg. It was pretty cool, right?
No, it's a fantastic way of packaging, and it just isn't cost effective to do it anymore. I even asked Fred, I was like, can you bring this back? And it doesn't make sense, economically to bring it back, but it's such a well-loved package. I mean, how can you not, right?
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Affordable draft beer.
Yeah, well, and then also too, I think of craft beers, and you mentioned Utica Club once again for us upstate New Yorkers. I remember that being in those little bottles, those Utica Club bottles, in all my like older Italian relatives' refrigerators. And maybe that was the craft beer of their day, right? Instead of
Yeah,
Budweiser, they were buying Utica Club, right?
it still is. You know what? Genesee, Cream Ale, and Utica Club. They're staples. And while you look at sort of the evolution of beer in this country, I would say that they definitely play a significant role in continuing to keep people engaged during those times in beer.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you mentioned Genesee Beer, Genesee Brewery. Once again, upstate, and I mean, I believe Jenny is distributed many different parts of the country. So if you may have heard of Jenny Light, Jenny Cream Ale, which actually I think is very good beer now. I used to get a really bad rep, but I had a Jenny Cream Ale the other day. I'm like, this is tasting pretty good. So, but I bring that up because being here in Rochester, it seems like we're experiencing the past 10 years. It's kind of a mecca for the beverage industry, right? Because we last time I heard, Genesee is the 6th largest brewery in the country, and then a lot of microbreweries, and then when you get to the whole wine industry with the Finger Lakes, I think there's like 70 vineyards or more now all around the Finger Lakes, and so this area has become a hub for the beverage industry. And then we have Constellation Brands right in Victor, New York, which is the largest distributor of beer, wine, and liquor, right? So I'm just kind of realizing this as I'm talking to you, like we're really in the heart of it all, it seems like, huh?
Well, and you'd be surprised that Vine Beer actually highlighted us in 2019 as one of the top beer destinations in the country. So we are actually in New York. Itself is growing exponentially. So we're second after California as far as the number of breweries, and the quality of beer in New York State has just skyrocketed, and that's proven both by awards and by the volume that is being consumed, just specifically in the craft beer industry. And we can accredit a lot of that actually to, as you said, to breweries like Genesee. What Genesee does actually, which is so remarkable compared to other big beer companies, is they actually took and started programs to help foster and act more like an older sibling to these younger craft breweries, which so many big companies do not do. But they offer us tasting classes, and they offer us testing, and they offer us, support groups for camaraderie. So the wonderful thing about the craft beer industry is that it really is collaborative, and to be in the town where Genesee is and also fostering that has really been a gift. So we are really lucky to be in this area. It is really not just one of the up and coming areas, but it's truly turning into a beer destination.
I love it. It's kind of in our DNA, it seems like, huh?
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, that's excellent. So tell me about Young Lion. And so, you've been dreaming about having your own brewery throughout the years, and you started and worked at these 3 other companies, got some great experience as an entrepreneurship. So tell us, how did the journey begin for you with Young Lion?
Right. So, like I said, I knew I had the background on how to do the sort of the back end office and start up the companies because we'd done these 3 other companies before. And so I knew what it was going to take. And that's one of the most important pieces as well, is that I knew it was going to be 90 hours and it was going to be an unbalanced life. And so that wasn't at all a surprise to me when we started up Young Lion. But I did research, like I said, for about the first 4 years, from 2011 to 2015. And then from 2015 to 2017, when we finally opened our doors, that's how long it took for us to actually build the brewery. I was lucky enough to fall in with my 2 co-owners, or co-founders. There's now 4 owners total, but my 2 co-founders who were women as well. One had a background in hospitality and has a beautiful eye for branding. So that was a great gift to have her. And then the other one, her family had a location that they wanted an anchor right on the very tip of Canandaigua Lake. It couldn't be a more perfect spot, because I think for the Finger Lakes, that real estate right on the tips of the lakes is the best because you have the view of the entire lake, the long lake going up, and then the mountains in the background. So such a gift to get that location. And then, we started really working on the project in 2015, and it took that long to build the building, to do the nationwide search for our head brewer, Phil Platts, who we were lucky enough to relocate to the area, and then finally to pass SLA requirements and regulations in order to open our doors in June of 2017.
So a lot of, if you're from this area and you come to the tip of Canandaigua Lake, which is gorgeous, as you mentioned, you guys have that restaurant. And I think a lot of people think it's a restaurant with a brewery, but anybody watching this, you'll see the amount of beer cans, behind Jennifer. I mean, the vast majority of your company is, creating these different brews and then shipping them to stores, bars across. I know that you had mentioned in our previous conversation, focusing on, going deep instead of going wide, right?
Right. And that's actually, even with the bigger brands right now, for example, I know Firestone Walker is actually one of the largest brands in the country, has actually started to pull back their distribution area because there is such a benefit to going deep rather than initially craft beer just tried to go as wide as they could to do as many sales as they could. But actually now sort of bringing it back in a little bit, I think is both more cost effective, and I think it's in an easier and more substantial way to manage your branding and your products. So yeah, but we and so New Glarus is an example of this. New Glarus is a very successful brewery that only distributes within the state, and so that right now that's our focus. But we're in about 800 locations in 3 years. We've grown about 40% every single year. We're in about 800 locations in both the Rochester, Buffalo, and Southern Tier area. And we will continue to expand our area, but we're going to do it very slowly. And we're going to do it when we feel that we have represented that market and have gone deep enough in that market that it's smart for us to continue to grow.
Yeah, great strategy. Niche it out little by little and going deep rather than wide. And it's working very well for you. Tell me about like those. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah, well, I was just going to say it's kind of ironic because with the software companies that we did before, our first customers were in Australia and Spain. And so when I started Young Lion with my co-owners, that was really the goal. I was like, you know what, my benefit is that I'm not thinking local, that I'm thinking all the way across the country, and I've got the whole world to conquer. And the other breweries aren't thinking that way. But it quickly changed just because of the type of product that it is and because of the connection that you need to make with that specific product and the challenges with being in the 3-tier system that I quickly learned that I needed to reorientate myself and pivot and stay local.
Great lesson. Always pivoting. Always.
I hate that word right now after COVID, but yes, always pivoting.
You got to do it. You got it. Well, as an entrepreneur, we have to say what's working,
right,
what's not working, and be willing to move quickly. So,
yep, absolutely.
So go back to those first days. Like, you were inventing a brand, you were inventing, a beer, and I mean, for me thinking about that, it's exciting, yet it's horrifying, right? Like, are people going to like my beer, and how do we get people to buy it and carry it? And what were those first, few months like, or maybe six months to a year, like just birthing this new idea? I mean, it was a little, was it like the roller coaster and the straps are down and you're like, I'm on this ride, right?
Yeah, no, it was, it was 90-hour weeks, and it was like, as it continues to be, stressful, but yeah, so starting off, a lot of details. I totally forgot about the fact that we needed to open a tap room. I was so focused on developing the brand and the beer that I was like, oh wait, I actually have to have a front of house where people can come in and experience the beer. When people that visit your tap room, 15% are more likely to become loyal to the brand than people that haven't visited the tap room. So it's a very important component, and the margins are larger as well, which is great. But it's a very important component. So launching was definitely incredibly stressful. One of the toughest things was that we really didn't have our voice at that point in time. We do now, but we were so new and so young. And usually a craft beer is 2 guys in a garage wearing flannel shirts with long beards, and they have this story about who they are, which is a lovely story. I have many of my good friends in the industry are exactly those guys, and they're wonderful. But we didn't really have that story. We were, I fell into it because I loved it. Someone had a location. So sort of crafting what our story was really challenging. And then on top of that, crafting our ethos and working on our logo and getting our name. I mean, that really was incredibly challenging, particularly in the alcohol space, because so many names have been taken. Yeah, so that was probably one of the toughest pieces of opening up.
How do you remember like your first sale, like the first company or the first store or restaurant that said, yeah, well, we'll carry it?
Um, I don't remember the first, but I remember ones like when they went on the shelves in Wegmans. Like that's a
It's
big
huge.
deal, you know.
Yeah.
So Wegmans is obviously, is a very large grocery chain on the East Coast, and we're lucky enough that they're headquartered here, and they are gracious and wonderful to so many local retailers, and so getting over those hurdles, and getting past that, those things, those are the ones that I remember getting into, local venues, large venues. That's always, those are great as well. And then also, having, we have some excellent restaurants here in the area that don't just pick any beer. And so to get the privilege of being, on their tap list, and I'm not just talking about fancy restaurants. I'm talking about family restaurants, and that means a lot when they purchase your beer and they put it on, because this is their heart and soul. This is how they make money. This is what their passion every day. So those are the ones that I really remember.
Yeah, I was at a local restaurant called the Distillery about a week and a half ago, and they had your beer listed as on draft, on tap, and I ordered it, of course, and they were out. So while disappointing for me, that's probably good news for you, right? I mean, it's
Right.
sold out, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm glad they're out, but I really wish that it had been replenished and that
Yeah, yeah.
that you could have purchased it. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Supply chain fun, right? So
Right,
I'm sure that's
exactly.
in your world as well. So, um, so speaking of the name Young Lion, where did that come from?
So this area, which now we refer to as the Flower City, before it was referred to as the Flower City, it was actually referred to as Young Lion of the West. So when they were building the Erie Canal, which those of us in upstate New York know, it goes from Albany to Buffalo. They wanted to attract young people in 1838 to the area in order to help build the Erie Canal, because they were having trouble doing that. And they thought that Young Lion of the West, they're calling it, I think, Rochesterville at the time, sounded a lot sexier than Rochesterville. So they nicknamed it Young Lion of the West. And most of us born and raised in this area, when I tell the story, they look at me baffled. It's the first time they've ever heard it. And now I promise you, for those people that are in this area, you're going to see it everywhere you go, that you're going to see that the name of this area used to be Young Lion of the West. So it was a strong name for us. That was the other thing, is that it's challenging to find a name, because so many of the words are taken in the liquor industry. We share a trademark section with both beer, wine, and spirits. So it's a very large group that we have to try to compete with. But it resonated with us. It was genuine with us. It was something we felt like we'd get behind, and it was a strong name. So that's how we landed on Young Lion.
I love it. I love it. And being a proud Rochesterian my whole life, I did not know that.
Right?
No, I'm glad. And now I'm going to see it
Not
all over the
alone.
place.
Yeah.
I know in the 1800s we were dubbed as the original boomtown, right?
Boomtown, right.
Because
And
of
we actually
Kodak.
researched, you may possibly using Boomtown, but we liked Young Lion a little bit more.
Yeah, Young Lion's awesome. That's a great name. So how do you, I mean, with so many beers and craft beers out there, how do you go and create flavors that, is that the right word? Flavors, I guess, that are unique to you.
Right. So that's a real challenge. I will say that there's definitely the trends. So beers called sours are now actually picking up. It had been New England's, and New England's still are very strong, the IPA, but sours are picking up, but not necessarily traditional sours. It's more of a sweet, fruity, sugary style. IPAs are obviously very strong as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, at first you kind of look at the market, and then you have to step back and say, okay, what's true to who we are as well. So you want to appease both. So I'm so lucky to have our head brewer, Phil Platts, who is just a phenomenally strong technical brewer. And no matter what you ask him to make, he's going to make it, and it's going to be approachable, and it's going to be delicious, and it's going to be, the quality is always consistent. So when we think about the market, but then also for us, it's important for us that to remain true to being a brewery. So while we want to follow trends, we definitely want to remain true to who we are, and that so we tend to step back into lagers, and but we might make a a mango kolsch. So we might do a kolsch, which is a traditional beer, but then also maybe put a twist on it by putting mango in it. So it really is a collaborative effort. I have an incredible sales team, and they keep us plugged into what the market is really looking for. And then we have the brewing side, which is the artistic side. And we talk about, what is true to who we are, and what's going to taste great, and what's going to resonate with our drinkers. And then we also, my team would be upset if I didn't say that Jen will look at the price, because some beers are more expensive to make than others, and I want to make it approachable at a price point for everyone. So it's really sort of a mix of those. It's a very collaborative mix of the three of those, of how we land on our styles.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's a premium beer, and it's not going to be the cheapest,
No.
but it's for people that truly, appreciate craft beer that is like a level up from the rest of them. I've had it. And I'm going to say it's not your cheapest beer in the cooler, but it's worth it. So the value is there, and so there's your plug. How's that?
Thank you. Well, and it's so challenging for craft beer to compete with the big guys, because it's all about margins, and it's all about volume. So we can't compete with the bigger guys as far as being able to keep our prices down low. And I don't think that so many of the craft beer drinkers understand that. They expect, when they see our price point versus a national brand, they don't understand why it can't be the same. And it really is just a matter of volume, and how much you can get your raw materials at for that price.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a cheeseburger at Burger King is a little cheaper than a cheeseburger at a nice family restaurant. Right. So, you're going to pay for the value that's delivered, and so keep on doing what you're doing. And so excellent. So you brought it up, when most people think of microbreweries, craft beer, that they're thinking of, two guys with the beards and the flannel in their garage, right? And you certainly don't meet any of those criteria.
I have a garage. I do.
You do have a garage. You have a garage, but thankfully you don't have a beard. Maybe you have some flannels at home, but you're not wearing one now. So what's it like? I mean, are you one of the, I don't even know, are you one of the few women in the industry, or is it pretty well represented? What does that look like?
So, well, the great news is that it's changed very dramatically over the past 3 years when I've been involved with it. But when I started, less than 3% of breweries in the country were wholly owned by, were women managed and run breweries. There is a chunk that are couples that are running breweries. But when I went to my first Craft Brewers Conference, I was very much alone. There were some women there, but they were obviously part of a team. But I was really the only, CEO woman walking in at that time. And then slowly, I met a couple that were in California, and then, but what's happened just within the past year is that the diversity within the industry is growing at a wonderfully rapid pace. And it's being highlighted particularly with the National Brewers Association and our New York State Brewers Association. So the great thing is there is a ton of support, and there always has been, even before there was the push to diversify the industry. I have to say that this industry really, I had a ton of big brothers ready to give me advice and support me, and across the industry, and coming from software, which is a very nice industry, but it's not the same for sure. I will say that within the industry, I've been so supported, particularly in New York State. So, and another big, huge change that I've seen is that for so long, beer was marketed to men. If we look at, the St. Pauli girl, and we look at sort of that, the concept of women drinking beer nationally was very foreign to us, even though it was happening. Within the past year, there are so many now Facebook groups and so many more women that are just saying, I am a beer drinker. This is my drink of choice. Some of that comes from the West Coast. Portland, 50% of their craft beer drinkers are women. And so it's coming across the country, to our side. And I see a dramatic increase in that. I still get comments. I was at a bar the other day and someone bumped into me and I was drinking a Young Lion. And he said to me, he goes, oh, I still get a chuckle whenever I see you ladies drinking a beer. And I said, well, you're going to find this hysterical. Hi, I'm Jen Newman. I own Young Lion Brewing Company. So
I own the company.
And that is, I mean, that's a moment to be kind, and that's a moment to reorientate what is reality,
right.
And not just what has been marketed to someone their entire lives.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine because I can never picture even, let alone saying that, but thinking that, and but the truth is there's still some, men out there with those thoughts. And I was going to say that, have you ever encountered anything like that? But I also was going to say, and I'm sure you can hold your own. So you just proved that. So no, that's fantastic. So what is next for you? I mean, you have all these different brands. You're making some great penetration in this area. You've got the restaurant in Canandaigua. Where do you think you're going to go from here? Where do you see, Jennifer in Young Lion in, we'll say 3 to 5 years?
But we still have so much more room to grow, even in the area that we're in right now. There is just so much more room to grow. So we're going to continue, in going into Buffalo and working into the Southern Tier for sure. And we still have capacity. So one thing that really inhibits so many breweries is that they build their brewery and they hit capacity so quickly. And before they can get up over their, their base expenses, they've hit capacity. So we were lucky enough to get at some of those mentors that I had early on said, go as big as you possibly can. And we did, and that has been challenging. But the great thing is that we have capacity to continue to grow. And so, 3 to 5 years, probably Syracuse and probably the rest of upstate. We did actually start shipping. That is one new piece that particularly COVID brought on, was that it opened up all of these opportunities to actually begin shipping your product. So that's been nice to receive orders from Brooklyn and from all over the state. And I hope to continue and grow that to expand the brand for sure.
Well, Jennifer, this has been super fantastic. I'm glad I finally tracked you down. I know that, I got to call out our mutual friend who finally enabled us to connect. Noelle, I know her as Noelle Alterino because I went to school with her, but there was her maiden name. Now it's Mick Ward. But thank you, Noelle, for connecting us. I believe you guys grew up together since you were little babies. I met her, I believe, in 7th grade, and we graduated high school together. And she reached out to me and she goes, Dave, I love your podcast. You've got some great superstars on there. Do you know my friend Jennifer Newman? And I said, well, in fact, I've been trying to connect with her, and it's reminding me of my attempts in high school to get a date. Very unresponsive. But I know that you obviously been working 90 hours a week. And so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you've been extremely busy, but I'm glad that we connected. And I really appreciate your time today and sharing your story with us and wishing you continued massive success.
Well, thank you for your patience with me. And I'm so sorry that running the breweries kept me away for so long, but I'm so glad we did this. And what a privilege to do this with you. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks again. If people want to get in touch with you and learn more about Young Lion, where do they go?
The cheers at younglionbrewing.com is our main gateway. But if they want to come visit us, actually we have people from all over the country coming and visiting us in Canandaigua Lake at 20 Lakeshore Drive. So, and you can see us at www.younglionbrewing.com and also Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and all of those.
Excellent, Jennifer. Thank you so much for sharing your heartbeats with us today. Totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day. And I want to thank the Gonzo family for listening and or watching. Appreciate you. We're here every Wednesday morning. Make sure to subscribe, download us. We're on all the major podcast apps. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day and make sure to stay awesome.